Hi, welcome to Framelines. This is Josh.
And I'm Shane, and yeah, this is a weird one because we're back together after 12 months. We haven't really recorded a video together because of the pandemic. So in this video, we're going to talk about the differences between mirrorless and DSLRs. Our channel sponsor, MPB, have been kind enough to send us a Sony A7R III, and we thought it'd be interesting to compare this with your Nikon D850.
Yeah, so we're really excited to be partnering with MPB for this video. We thought we'd have kind of two similarly priced options. These cameras both came out around 4 years ago. Picking them up used from MPB, you can save around £1,500 versus their original launch price. They're both just packed full of features. They've got high resolution sensors, loads of lens options. They really hold their own against any kind of contemporary cameras out today. So we thought they'd be a great kind of option, a great comparison.
Similar specs, and really the main difference is OVF versus EVF. So we're going to talk about all that in this video. And to get started, Josh is going to talk about the Nikon D850.
So, DSLRs. Why am I using a DSLR as my main camera system? There are a few features of DSLRs that I really like. There are a few slight disadvantages, I guess. The main thing I love about DSLRs is being able to look through the optical viewfinder and just see straight through the lens. I love the simplicity of that. Of course, EVFs are brilliant. It's nice being able to see your exposure in real time, but I really just love the overall simplicity and ease of an optical viewfinder, but that's just my personal preference. The image quality from the Nikon D850 has really blown me away. Just the amount of detail from that high resolution sensor is just crazy. There's a huge scope to be able to crop retrospectively. Also, the dynamic range from this sensor is 100% the closest thing I've seen to like a film-like experience in a digital body. I understand that is also the case in the kind of Nikon D700, D750, the D810, the other kind of full-frame DSLR options they have available. I'm just really impressed by the image quality from this, and I think it is definitely like future-proofed for many years to come, even though it is an older body. Another great advantage of DSLR systems is that they've been around for so long. There are loads of lens options. You can get a cheap set of primes, a zoom lens. Yeah, there's just so many options. The Nikon F mount has been around for 50, 60 years. There are just hundreds of lenses you can buy used, and they'll all work fantastically on any Nikon DSLR body. There are a few slight disadvantages. The big one, as you can probably see from me holding this, is the size and weight. This Sigma lens in particular is, it's notoriously large and heavy. Combined with this big chunky Nikon D850 body, it is a substantial package to be carrying around all day. There have definitely been some warmer days where I have thought to myself, I really wish I didn't have this gigantic camera around my neck and I had a more compact, lightweight, mirrorless option. That is a bit of a trade-off, I guess, because I've been able to take advantage of the cheaper lenses, for example. But yeah, that is a slight disadvantage for some people, I guess. It doesn't bother me too much, except on the really warm days. The video from the D850 is okay, but I have had a few slight issues with it. Autofocus while shooting video seems pretty much non-existent. If you're fine with manual focusing when you're recording video, then I think that's no issue at all. There is also no stabilization in the body, so lots of mirrorless cameras have that as standard, so that's definitely something to consider. So those are my main thoughts on the Nikon D850 and DSLRs in general. So over to Shane to talk about mirrorless and the Sony A7R III.
Thanks, Josh. So I've used the Sony A7R III. When we first started Framelines, I needed a workhorse camera that I could use to film videos and also take stills. And this seemed like a really good option at the time, and I was really impressed by it. I used it for a couple of months and I've taken thousands of street photos with it. And it's a camera that I recommend to people as just a great workhorse camera. Right now, I think it's one of the best bargains you can get in photography because it's a 4-year-old camera. So the price has dropped considerably, but the specs are still incredible. So let's break it down. What's so great about this camera? Why do I think you should buy one? How does it compare to the Nikon D850 and more modern cameras? So what's so good about the A7R III? Well, first of all, I think image quality from this is incredible. It's got a 42 megapixel CMOS sensor, and the image quality is very on par with the Nikon D850, and both of those sensors are at the very top tier of image quality for any kind of full frame digital sensor available right now. The EVF in this camera. So when Josh was talking about the D850, he mentioned how he liked the simplified optical viewfinder. And that's something we've both talked about in previous videos. And I think an optical viewfinder is my personal preference too. But there are some major benefits in having a high quality EVF, like the one in the A7R III. With an EVF, you can see exposure. You can see white balance, JPEG settings, all of that as you take the photo. This is immediate feedback, which you can then correct and adjust and play around with and experiment with. My first real camera had an EVF. It was the Fujifilm X-T2, and I think it helped me learn to get adjustments right in camera without guessing so much, because I could see the adjustments, so I could just make them right there in the camera. And that can be a huge benefit. It can save you a lot of time, and I think it can even help you to be a bit more creative with adjustments like exposure, because it's not as intimidating if you can actually see it and make the adjustments there and then. So sometimes, we're a bit hard on EVFs. We've mentioned it a couple of times in previous episodes, how we prefer optical viewfinders, but there are some very definite bonuses to having an EVF in a camera. For what this camera can do, I think it's a miracle just how small the body is. It's 300 grams lighter than the Nikon D850. And if you pair it with a smaller lens like the Zeiss 35f2, you've got a very small package. Lenses. So Josh mentioned previously that one of the reasons he was drawn to the Nikon D850 and the Nikon system is that the availability of lenses was huge, and lenses were quite cheap, and it was really easy to get access to quite a good lens setup. And I think that's a really great reason to switch systems, because sometimes the lens is even more important than the sensor behind it. And when it comes to lens choices, Sony have a really great selection of lenses, including some really great lenses from Zeiss, like the 35f2 and the 55-1.8, which I have on here right now. And this was the lens that I used for the couple of months that I did street photography with this camera. And on top of that, because it's a mirrorless camera, that means you can adapt manual lenses. So you can in fact take all of the Nikon lenses that Josh had access to with the Nikon D850, you can adapt them to this camera. So I think with all that in mind, there's no argument really. This is a really great camera. And there are some cons, but I think they're pretty minor, like poor ergonomics, and the menu UI is pretty terrible. But you can buy grips now and extensions which make the grip a bit more usable, and I think if you customize it, you can get around having to dip into the menu that much. So why would you buy this instead of the newer Sony A7R IV? Well, I think this is at a sweet spot right now where it's 4 years old, so the price has dipped considerably. When this launched, it was about £3,000 in the UK. Right now you can get one for just under 2,000. I see them going in really good condition for about £1,900. And for what this camera offers, I think that's a really great price. So how does this compare to the Nikon D850? Well, the image quality from both cameras is almost identical, so it comes down to your preferences. Would you prefer having a smaller camera and a lighter kit? Would you prefer having an EVF over an optical viewfinder? Do you want to adapt manual lenses? Do you want really good autofocus for video? So in summary, these are both really good cameras, and they're both available now for under £2,000. There are some very practical reasons for choosing one over the other, and it really comes down to personal preference over which you prefer. So thanks for watching along, and a big thanks again to MPB for sending us a Sony A7R III to try out for this video. Let us know in the comments. What do you prefer? Do you prefer mirrorless or DSLR? Maybe you've got a few reasons that we haven't really mentioned here, or maybe you'd recommend completely different cameras entirely. So yeah, that's it. Like and subscribe, and we'll see you in the next episode.